Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Welcome to True Crime to Go. What can I get for you?
Yeah, do you have any specials for judges here in town? Because, you know, I'm a judge. So if you have specials for judges, I'd like the judges special.
Pull up to the second window and we'll see you next crime.
Welcome to True Crime to Go. I am John here with Jamie. You're a judge, eh?
I'm a judge. We're going back to a courtroom after your story about fake bonds money. And we're just in that, we're in that courtroom vibe. I guess being a crime podcast, that's not unusual, but interesting that we go back to back like this.
And we didn't plan it. So that's what makes it special.
You know what? We'd probably have a pretty good podcast if we'd actually talk to each other every now and then.
That's true. We only talk on air.
That's wild. It's amazing, though. Best friend I ever had.
What are we talking about?
April 16th, 2025. We're going to go to Lake Charles, Louisiana at the Calcasieu Correctional Center.
Calcasieu. That's an amazing Louisiana name.
Lake Charles is a city about 80,000 people in the southwestern corner of the state, about 200 miles west of Nolens. The Calcasieu Correctional Center is the parish jail, the place where people wait when they want to go on trial. And there was a person at this center that made a phone call. And the other end of that call was a guy who identified himself as a local judge. He said he was calling to reduce the bond of an inmate named Demond Lynn Delahoussaye Sr.
That is perfect Louisiana name.
He said the bond should be changed to release on recognizance. No money, just walk in, prove you are who you say you are, and you get to walk away.
If a person used that term, I would assume that they are actually a judge.
Yeah, and he called it ROR, which is like shorthand for that. So not only does he know it, he knows the lingo. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the jail staff member assumed this was the judge. He believed him, just like John would have apparently, and the paperwork was adjusted. Delahoussaye, who is facing a charge of aggravated burglary, was released from custody in June, about 6 weeks after that call, again with no bond, no money. He just walked out of the Calcasieu Correctional Center a free man. But as you may suspect, the man on the other end of that phone was not a judge. He was 42-year-old Adrian James St. Romain from Lake Charles.
I love it so much. Did you know Coach Ed Orgeron is back at coaching football at LSU?
Yeah, man, it's go win football, man.
All is right with the world.
I don't know why I meshed him with Boomhauer, but it works.
Today, we're going to be talking about the St. Romain case. This was a fraud scheme that was really simple, really low tech, and it just was pretty interesting. And we're also going to cover what happened to the first successful call, because he didn't stop there. In fact, he called back multiple times, which is the part of the story that moves it from amusing to genuinely alarming.
And again, this is the way the system is set up, right? Somebody's arrested and charged with a crime. A judge sets their bond, which is the amount of money they must pay. In our story on our previous episode, he tried to pay in counterfeit money with Chinese letters on it, even though it was American bills. Didn't work out, but this is an incentive to get them to show up for court. If you show up to court, you can get your bond back. If not, you don't get it. So the bond money is important to these people. He was facing that aggravated burglary charge, and the bond was set at an amount he couldn't afford. So when this call came in, he can afford zero.
I did not understand how bonds work until just now.
This is an educational show, John. Educational show. Judges do occasionally modify those, but it's not as often as you would think, and certainly not as often as the Calcasieu Sheriff's Office started to believe when they got call after call after call. On July 17th of 2025, Delahoussaye appeared for a court hearing, and the court staff reviewed the file. Somebody realized the bond reduction that had let him out of jail had no corresponding legal order, because usually they will say this is going to happen, then they have to put it on file. There was no motion, there was no hearing, and no judge's signature, just that phone call. There was a note from the officer that took the call. So then they arrested Delahoussaye. He was booked back into custody and stayed there for 6 more weeks. It was, they were getting busted, I guess.
Yeah, so he was rearrested on July 17th, and he called the jail again. According to the sheriff's office, he made at least 2 more calls in July after the scheme had already been discovered, again impersonating a judge, and again attempting to set a fraudulent bond for his friend Delahoussaye. The calls did not work this time. Investigators had flagged the situation, and the staff were on alert in case it were to happen again. So this time the fraudulent bond requests were rejected, but even more importantly, those calls were being traced, and every time St. Romain dialed the jail, he was giving investigators more and more to work with.
And John, the sheriff absolutely is from Louisiana as well. Sheriff Stitch Gallery later explained why his office had stayed silent about it. They didn't release the information in July because they wanted to get more information for the detectives and corrections to work with, both in the investigation and to prove what had happened. So they didn't want to tip off the suspect. Apparently, he was unaware that he was being tracked, and he kept calling to try to get Delahoussaye off the hook. He called repeatedly, but obviously they were catching on to him. And after about 5 months in September of 2025, deputies from the Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office and the United States Marshal Service arrested Adrian James St. Romain for fraud, for pretending to be a judge. They also charged him with attempted simple escape, doesn't seem very simple, assisting escape, injuring public records, and false impersonation. And he also had unrelated charges that he was wanted for of theft, criminal trespass, and possession of a controlled substance. So he ended up in more trouble than Delahoussaye was in the first place.
I wonder how often it is that a judge or another public official would even have that kind of phone conversation to where the officer was like, okay, this seems like it's legit.
I wouldn't think it would be that often. And the reporting seems to support that while they may adjust it often, it's through the official process of we're going to have a hearing. There's going to be a motion and I'm going to rule on it. And there's going to be legal documentation. I don't think it's ever just handled with a phone call, but
do you think
they bought it here? Do
you think this scheme was more complex and that jail officials or deputies were even involved? Were they good old boys and he took the phone call and said, you know what, I'm going to take you at your word.
I think so.
Get on out of here.
I think that's probably what happened. I don't think he was involved on, like in on it or anything like that. I think he was maybe gullible. Maybe trusting, and
I bet he's not working the phones anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, I doubt he lost his job, but I don't know that. Maybe they just don't let him talk to the phone anymore. He can be down in the evidence room logging stuff.
Yeah, that's where I would want that guy.
Around all the drugs, all of them.
And very important stuff. Jamie, this is wild. I really can't believe it worked, and it's just so simple. So simple.
Again, this is not a how-to. We're not trying to help people figure out how to get people out of jail or impersonate judges, but it has worked at least once.
I love it. And
it's been a
get
crime
out on
story.
bond without paying it. That's a pretty good one.
10 minutes or less.
Would you like crime with that?
You've listened to True Crimecast, distributed by Stoveleg Media. Check out stoveleg.com to find out more about your hosts and to find other podcasts to listen to. Stoveleg Media. Igniting conversation.